Hello, Reagan.
Hey, Norris.
And hello, whoever is from DC. Yes, Alistair.
That's me, Alistair.
And hi, Mary.
Hello.
For once, I actually wasn't babbling into the mic with the mute on. Give me time. I'm sure I'll revisit it. And hi, Kim.
Hi, this is Kim.
Sure. So first time on one of these calls?
Uh-huh.
Be brave. It won't be too painful. It won't be too painful. But we will ask you to, to bare your soul.
Okay.
So we have a few. I see Cecilia's here. And I really should have combed my hair, shouldn't I? Anyway, once again. Yeah, it looks like Cecilia. It looks like she's back home.
I am.
So I had 4 or 5 emails in the last few days from people who would like to be on this call. Mm-hmm. But Mondays are impossible.
Mm.
Now, interestingly, they all said Friday.
Oh.
I'm like, but I imagine Monday is the tough day for most people, probably the toughest day. But I don't think we have really a lot of options. So.
No, it's challenging. It's not necessarily impossible. It's challenging.
That means worse than impossible. I think we'll be. I mean, as long as we have. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just wanting to ask who the 202 number is, so I can.
That's Alistair.
Oh, okay. Hi, Alistair. I will type you in.
Hi, Cecilia.
Hello. Okay. All right. Go on. So you were noticing what, Norris?
Oh, I was just saying that people are, Fridays are probably really tough, and that usually challenging means worse than impossible, because it might be possible, but it's just way too frustrating to deal with. I think we'll be fine, as long as people actually are willing to go listen to the recording. We should be in good shape. He says with his fingers crossed. For luck. It's a little crazy here. It's Wazy Startup Week, and it's starting off, and there's way too many things that could be interesting. They're not the you must go see or you must avoid. They're all that, like, it could be great. So my curiosity, it'll be interesting to see. There's already been some friction over certain groups. So a number of groups, there are a number of entrepreneurial groups in the community who were excluded from it, which is interesting. I was told I'm not an ecosystem builder by the people organizing it. Like,
what the heck told you that?
The people who want to be, particularly one guy who wants to be like king of the ecosystem. So, and he feels like he has to be the top dog, and he would love to have me die so he could. So
I don't know about that, but that there is no king of the ecosystem. So.
Well, they don't know that.
So
it's sort of like being, king of Grand Fenwick. They have their illusions, I guess, but the bad guys in the ecosystem got pulled in because they feel like politically, you got to go along to get along, and if these people, the other kings of the ecosystem, I'm not sure how you have multiple kings, but it sounds like a recipe for a really, a really bad sitcom, or maybe a really good one. Anyway, I always thought that way. But I got asked.
Norris,
yes. Alistair?
Is this a case of an individual who has been used to being powerful in the past and wants that to continue? Does he see his influence slipping away?
Well, he is well, the person who most screwed me over in this regard, I think he has he has been very good at self-aggrandizing in the past. He is very good at impression management, but he feels like he has to be the guy with a microphone standing on the stage. He has to be, and it's and the other co-organizer, he's willing to share space with, and that's the guy who's actually doing all the work. So, who basically said, well, they asked me, well, what could you possibly present and do with this thing? And then they always said they didn't say no, they just didn't respond. But there is sort of a clique of people who would like to have more respect, more power, more influence. So it's up, but it's on the other hand, it's still going to be a pretty good event. So and the tickets are free. So
can I just jump into the call and make sure that we get everything?
Yeah, we have. I see Michael. Yeah, Michael Meeks, wave your hand from Louisiana, and we have a few people. Jared Reynolds and Chad are with us. Poor Chad is what?
505, Eric.
Yes, there is in fact an Eric in the house, although he's a little technically challenged today. How is everyone?
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that I label everyone.
Yeah, and Chad, what time is it there?
5:06 in the morning.
You definitely get the MVP, most virtuous player in our group on this. Well, it's we're at 6 after. We have actually a good turnout despite being an infamous Monday. So,
okay. Do we have a scribe, Norris?
Yes, are you going to scribe or no? That would be terrible. Dr. Meeks, would you be willing to take notes? I can
scribe, actually. I'm good. I'm going to drop the link for the agenda into the chat, and then Eric, we haven't moved everything down from September. Is that, do I need to do something with this so that?
I think we'll be good as long as we have someone taking notes. When this is being recorded, I think we should be fine. So
yeah, I think if we like it, yeah, I think if we just start taking notes, I will help with that. I believe I should be able to get into the document myself in a minute or so here, but yeah, let's not wait too much to kick and move.
Well,
forward.
Having two different people scribing helps capture, as Lauren Higgins said, that having two different people scribing can make the notes a little bit better, and we can merge them, and hopefully there not too much contradictory stuff. So I figure we've got pretty much everybody we're going to get. So why don't we plunge ahead? That if you haven't seen it, that I did put out send out a short survey about, so you can tell us who you are, what your strengths are, what your interests are. If you haven't had that, I can put that into the chat, and you can do later. But I've also have a doc that has links to, like, in one place, what is a project team, what is a project canvas, what's been the existing traction on Goal 5, and so forth. But why don't we start with just in terms of introduction, I like to do this rapid fire as we go around, so 10 words or less too. And Kim, you're our new person.
Yes.
So why is Goal 5 important to you and or your organization?
So I guess I got kind of interested in this the ESHIP community when I attended the Kaufman Research Entrepreneurship Bootcamp. So that was back in the spring. And so
Yes,
Go5,
we met there actually.
yeah,
You introduced me. And somebody named Kim introduced herself.
that was me. And I guess Go5 is just interesting to me, just from like a researcher perspective. I think having just important metrics and more clearly defined frameworks and ways to measure outcomes and processes, I think is interesting, and I think that is important to like move the field forward. So I guess I'm just interested in kind of being involved and then seeing what kinds of like projects that you all are doing around this idea. So that's all.
Well, you came to the right place, and I can hear Alistair Brett smiling. He's been our biggest champion for uh, building better Frankfurt. So, what is your big burning question? If you could have one question answered, what would that be?
That's a really hard one, I guess.
Well, you can. Well, your homework for next week is to come back with that one big burning research question.
Okay.
Sounds good. Let's see. I'm trying to see how these work here. Playing with the Professor Snipes.
Hi there.
So why is this important to you, and what's your big burning question?
Well, I know for me, since people call me professor, I like to do research. So evidence research for me is like all about the evidence. And one of the key questions I think I have since I'm in the education space is to really understand what that means. And what is good entrepreneurship education, and how does it affect the ecosystem around us?
That is an outstanding, as long as you're not doing that to suck up to the guy hosting the call, that's a great idea.
I didn't even know. Did I read your mind?
Possibly. There's quite a little discussion boomed up yesterday on LinkedIn. I'll hook you in on that. Some both encouraging and disturbing evidence. The disturbing part is we probably should all most of us should quit trying to teach, because we don't know how
but
to
they've been
teach.
telling us that forever. I just saw this great movie with all these people.
They're gonna, it's an interesting, there are some ways to get better at that. And I think being engaged with the ecosystem should be, the more deeply you're engaged, the easier, better that'll be. But that's a very testable question. But this isn't about me. This is about you guys. So let me shift to Reagan. Reagan, are you with us?
Yep, I'm here.
So why is this important to you? What's your big burning question?
So why this is important to me is I've been dealing with what has basically now been very obvious. I've been dealing with metrics for ecosystem builders for, 5 or 6 years, to be honest. I volunteer for an organization that's called Autumn, AUTM. It's where university people like myself, we're not faculty, we're administrators at the end of the day. But what we do is we transfer technology and knowledge outside of the universities to industry. And of that organization, we measure quite a bit of data. Unfortunately, most of it's not like actionable, as in like we can't change our processes and change our attitudes and methods to try to increase them, but it's still extremely valuable information to the ecosystem for a variety of reasons, such as how much money is being spent by the government and how much and what's coming out of it.
Okay.
So we measure
what's your big burning question?
My big burning question is, how can we identify more metrics or more things that can be measured that are actionable, as in we can change our behaviors, change our methods to make it better.
Okay. Well, I think I'm gonna. This is the 10-word limit isn't working. We have Christina. You have suddenly appeared on the call.
Hi.
So what's your big burning question that you want to answer that we might be able to help?
Well, I think that we're all kind of on the same page on figuring out how we can better support our resource partners here in Puerto Rico to better measure their metrics and how we can do that together and collectively measure our ecosystem building efforts. Excellent.
That's something we're all very excited about. Let's see, who else is new here? I want to start with the new folks. Michael, how are you doing? What's your big burning question? Mike? You're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry about that, guys. So, yeah, my big burning question is how do we build an ecosystem? How do we best build it? And what role education plays in that? So in my region, I'm getting a whole bunch of education. ESHIP educators who are not doing a very good job. But anyway, how do we measure that?
Well, it sounds like we're already hitting a recurring theme. Jared, you're not new, but what's your big burning question?
Yeah, I'm really interested in rural entrepreneurship and doing work on building rural ecosystems. So what the key components are, how they differ, and how to measure where a community or a region is at and where they have to go.
Wow, that is a cool. That's also a cool topic. I'm excited about all of these. Chad, how are you, sir? And what's your big burning question?
Yeah, great, Norris. Thanks. We've got a lot of investment happening in innovation ecosystems and this kind of activity, from physical spaces, programs, accelerators, education. There's a lot of different things we can do. And so the questions that I have are around how do we measure the impact and how do we get that data more time? And what are the common principles that are across everything from regional areas, metro cities, different geographies, nationalities, cultures, and what are the variables that we can tweak? So what are the things that we can really play with, and how do we get that feedback more rapid so we can make better decisions rather than continuing on some of the policies that may not be effective? How do we get that understanding quicker?
Great. Mary?
Hey guys, my first burning question is, can you guys see me?
I see you're wearing black.
No,
against a black
I'm not.
background.
Okay, I have no idea why my video isn't working, but I'm here with you guys.
Thank you.
My burning question is focusing a lot on rural entrepreneurship as well, but also in more of a suburban area or smaller big cities. You know, coming at it from the actual implementation standpoint, how do we define these sustainable metric systems that can be utilized really in rural and urban environments? How do we actually create something that can make this a viable framework, that makes this a viable job, that says this is what we do, and here's how we're impacting the community, and here's how small business can help build your local economy, no matter if it's rural or urban. So that's really what I want. I want that standard framework.
Okay. So building, again, I started hearing some common themes here. Eric, I'm not sure how they organize this across the top, but you're the next one up.
And we'll see if this works. Is my audio on?
Sadly,
maybe not. Oh, I got a
yes.
thumbs up. Okay, so let's see. Oh, yes, perfect. So I will say that I do not necessarily have a burning question. I have a very general question, and that question's for everyone. It feels like we've got about 40% sort of new folks on the call, about 40% new folks on the call. Can we get just kind of around the room who is here, and maybe what hat do they wear, what organization are they part of? Because I know there's some folks who've said some interesting things, and I want to know where they're from, so I can help take some better notes.
unless Andy wants to give us, again, only two other people I haven't asked the burning question thing. Andy, do you have a big burning question? I think we have Andy and Stacy.
I do. I have lots of burning questions for this group.
Your biggest one.
But my biggest one, and if anyone can answer this, I would love it, which is all of these questions around what's the process to build ecosystems and how do you measure them are super valuable questions. My question is, how do we come to consensus as a field? Generally speaking, what is the process and what are the metrics we're going to use across different ecosystems? So how do we build consensus across the field is the burning question.
Oh, first Andy asks the hard one.
Funny.
Yeah, so it just buzz killed the whole room here. Okay. Stacy, what about you? I'm sorry, you're last. I did not do this alphabetically, but I will pretend I did.
No worries. Hey everybody, Stacy Williams from Forward Cities. I come from a public health background with research as being my focus for a while, and I'm interested in applying psychometric evaluation to the properties of the tools that we use and working to understand ecosystems from a multi-level purpose or multi-level perspective.
Oh, excellent. So since you're left, we can sort of jump to Eric's question. You told us that you're with Forward Cities. Where are you located physically?
Durham, North Carolina.
In the triangle,
yes.
Sort of. Durham is almost as cool as Chapel Hill.
Oh, no, Durham's
Just
cool.
ask the Chapel Hill guys.
Definitely
Anyway.
comes to basketball. Basketball, I'm going to go with Chapel Hill.
Well, yeah, actually. That I'm sort of more like a North Carolina Greensboro kind of person.
Okay.
I'm sort of, I like the middle brow sort of stuff. So, yeah, thank you for doing that. I'm going to Alistair. Alistair, tell us a little about yourself. I did not ask your burning question. Where are you? What do you do?
Well, my burning question continues to be the same one, which is how can we measure what goes on inside an ecosystem rather than just outputs, and how can we make those measurements produce actions? And where I'm from, you asked me where I'm from is in Inferno LLC, which is a small business in working now on ecosystems and commercializing research, particularly from universities and a few other related items. So I'm very much a researcher as my background. And I'm in Washington, D.C.
It's mute, so I guess if I press that, then it's...
Can people mute their mics if they're, that must be Alexander. So you say and make sure I get this right. Alexander, 10 words or less. What's your big burning question? And tell us why you seem to be in a university meeting room.
So this is probably the first time I'm using Zoom for a conference meeting. So we have this place where you check in. Yeah.
So what's your big burning question?
Yeah, so I was looking at the entrepreneurial ecosystem and how we can come up with metrics or what definitions around that. So this is probably because this is my first meeting. I thought I'd get to know what's going on in the ESHIP Go 5 community and here working on the same.
Well, but you have a big burning question. Tell us.
Yeah. So from what I gather from the ESHIP community is that it's more focused on the entrepreneur and less on the community, the ecosystem, and what forms that ecosystem, and how do you measure those things that form the ecosystem around the entrepreneur. So,
Okay, so
like for example, if you look at a rural community, right? What is the ecosystem that forms around, say, the entrepreneur in a small town of about 2,500 people? Well, what kind of an ecosystem would be there? So what comes to my mind is the library, the public library. If there's a college nearby, community college, then that would be something. And then, so those kind of institutions, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm really hard to get any, get this to be concise. I want to, because we only have an hour, I want to, is anybody else joined the call that has not chimed in?
I don't know where Jared is and
Jared was here. He's looking, nodding his head and smiling, I think.
I'm here.
Everyone.
Like where I'm physically located?
Yes.
Yeah, I work for the University of New Hampshire.
Yeah, excellent.
Excellent. Chad, who do you work for?
Myself.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, so I do some work with a few universities, but mostly it's my own business mapping and measuring and support the system in Australia. But I will be taking more of a structured role with a couple of universities in order to progress some of the initiatives.
Terrific.
And Chad is also the Australian lead for the Global Entrepreneurship Network. So he's the managing director. He is
modest, obviously.
And Reagan, I don't see you today. So
Reagan is here.
Mm-hmm.
Or he was here.
I'm here.
Reagan,
my day job is I work for University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA, and then I moonlight with Autumn, as I mentioned during my little spiel, which is dealing with people that do my job, but at other universities.
Terrific, terrific. Christina, tell us about your gig.
Hi, so I'm part of the Comena 66 team. We're the local KC SourceLink type of organization in Puerto Rico.
Nice, nice. So are you using SourceLink's stuff?
Yes, we are. We are using the
Okay.
CRM and a couple of other tools that they have created.
Nice, nice. Let me go to Mary. Where are you? What's your gig?
I am in the booming almost metropolis of Springfield, Missouri, which everybody wants to live here, I know. I own my own business, Borealis Consulting, and I do grant writing, research, and training for nonprofits. I also do small business consulting, and then I am a representative for a CDFI called Justine Peterson that's based out of St. Louis, and I represent them in all of western Missouri, all the way up to Kansas City, and the rural areas down here in Springfield.
Nice, nice. Let me see. Who we need? Still need Mike Meeks. I assume that because of Shreveport in the background, you're in Shreveport.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm a professor, scholar, entrepreneurship strategy. Yeah.
And you at LSU Shreveport.
In Shreveport, right.
Yeah. And Kim, where are you based? What's your gig?
I'm at the University of Kansas in Lawrence. I'm in the School of Education and I teach classes on research methods.
Oh, nice. Nice. We may may utilize you a lot as we move forward. I'm looking at the list here. I think everybody has pretty much otherwise has told us. Is there anything any of you else want to share real quick before we plunge ahead?
We haven't heard from you, Eric, or Shane on where you guys are at.
Well, I'm sitting in front of a laptop. That's probably not what you want. I live in Boise, Idaho. I may or may not be an ecosystem builder here, which is from a prior conversation. You may feel free to laugh or not. I am a recovering tech entrepreneur that is getting involved in a couple of ed tech startups. I try to do ecosystem building, and I also have a research hat, I research and write and speak on entrepreneurial development, both on the education side and on the ecosystem side. And I'm not really good at short introductions. So let me hand the ball up to Shane. Shane, where are you hiding out?
Hey, so I'm here at Borough Manhattan Community College, part of the City University system in New York City. And yeah, this is my office. I'm currently not traveling, which is nice.
Well, good to hear that. Who else haven't we heard from? Where they are? Eric.
I think it could just be me. So Eric,
yes, it is
hi
just
everyone.
I'm struggling
well,
little.
Like the folks who haven't said anything.
Little check marks
as far
there.
as location. So I am with Forward Cities. I am also currently located in Las Cruces, New Mexico.
Is that where you are now?
That's where I am currently. I'm based in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Ah, so you made a long trek to Las Cruces.
Great. I think I put into the agenda, or I got out of the last agenda, some of the things that people wanted to focus on these calls as we move forward. So the big question that we had put in the agenda is what will keep folks coming back. And the input that we got was talking about concrete goals for the calls and the work and getting a sense of progress to achieve and help and keep folks involved. And the other one is about sharing the work and feedback and community practice. So it encourages participation and things. And one of the things that we talked about in shifting the model of these meetup calls is to get to the subjects that you would like to learn more about peer learning and talking about a subject within the goal calls. So for this, it seems like the input that we're hearing back from everybody is how do we find a common set of metrics and what would that take? So maybe having a content expert, people who have been looking at this work for some time. Alistair's a really great example of somebody who's been studying ecosystems and what the necessary elements are and things, and trying to find some common themes. And I feel like, we talked about having some people speak about their expertise and having a discussion around that. So are there like 3 people that we could pick to have be the topic of some future calls and to help facilitate maybe 15 minutes of content and then discuss it?
Yeah, I think there was at least some excitement, some interest, even excitement about sort of the peer learning that had a couple people volunteer. They're not on the call, ironically not on the call today. So it is an interesting, maybe a way to do this is again, real quick, since that we want to include everybody, is if you can say in 10 words or less, what could you teach? What could you teach us? Kim?
I guess so. My background is in education and psychology, and a lot of like as
okay, but just
okay.
What's something if you had to give me 5 words? What can you teach us?
So I'm really knowledgeable in research methods, program evaluation, and data management.
Okay, well, think about what you and what you might be able to lead it or co-lead a discussion on.
Okay.
Shane?
Hey, Norris, in the interest of time, and so that we can capture it in the agenda, can everyone kind of type in a topic that they would like to learn about? And
great idea.
Call that. And can I invite? I know, Andy, you said something about sharing something about the ESHIP Communities pilot program. Can you
Well,
share that while people are typing in some subjects?
Sure. I mean, so I guess the question would be, if we want to do a round robin project updates. If anybody is working on a project that relates to anything that has been called out in the ESHIP goals. If that's now, I'm happy to talk about what we're doing. But let's not make the call about me. Let's let everyone else share what they're working on. But if you want to do that now, Norris, I'm happy to kick it off.
Okay. Well, when we do that, let's just do that.
Let's get into because I'm not sure that there's a lot of folks who've been working on something specific to a project. So to get back onto some pieces of the agenda, if we could do a couple project updates, that would be awesome.
And Eric, do you want to frame this because I know there's a number of people on this call, a couple people that have not, I don't believe have even been to an ESHIP summit. So can you maybe set up a little bit, Eric, what you're asking, if there are people, what you're asking for in this part, and then I'm happy to share what we're doing at the foundation.
That's a great way to, it's important to have a frame for these things and some introductory. So basically, and I'm not sure how much justice I can do to it, but the Kaufman Foundation, working with several other, both individuals, but also some of the other organizations who are concerned with entrepreneurial ecosystem building, developed a set of 7 goals that if we make progress on those different goals, we will help create a healthy field for ecosystem builders. So there's a lot of different aspects to that. If you go to the notes that I posted up earlier, and we'll probably post a link here to the to the dashboard, you can see all of the different goals that are involved. But each of the goals has a small set of projects that felt like they were the most valuable projects that folks from the community could work on together to make some forward motion. So within goal 5, I don't have those handy, but there's a few different goals that folks have been at least talking about, and some of them have actually been working on. So at this point in these calls, just to make this a little bit more standard, what we like to do is go around the room and see if there are people who are participating who've been part of work on a project. Can they share a little bit about where they are? Do they need any help? What progress are they making? That way we all know what each other are working on. So that way, if I'm interested in a couple of different goals, I can tell the folks on a different call, oh, the folks in goal 5 are working on something. That's a really half-assed version of it, Andy.
Sure, that's a good setup. Sure. So I know there's just a couple people on this call that you've not been. I'm not aware that you have been at the ESHIP summit, so I want to give you a little bit of setup. So that was very good, Eric, and helpful, I think, for some folks. But really, the goal is how do we use a monthly call to get together to talk about topics of interest related to ESHIP goal number 5, which is really around sort of the process and the metrics for ecosystem building, and in these meetup calls, have speakers, panels, conversations about that stuff, and then spend part of it, if anyone's working on something specifically related to ESHIP goal number 5, and in this case, the 3 projects that have been, the 3 specific ideas of projects that have been identified as a metrics community of practice, a repository for ecosystem building practices and case studies, and an ecosystem building research conference. So if you're into any of those things, this is the group where every month we get together and talk about different topics. And thank you, Eric and Norris, for putting this all together, and Cecilia for sort of running the infrastructure of the emails and the
what he's saying nicely is that Celia is the adult supervision.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so directly related to the repository of ecosystem building practices and case studies, there are 2 projects that the Kaufman Foundation is currently working on, actually one with one of our collaborators here on the call. And I just want to take 30 seconds and update you on those projects. There are many people building many ecosystems in many places. There seems to be very little consensus on how to do that. We started a project in collaboration with Forward Cities, as well as a group out of UNC, Marianne Feldman's evaluation team at UNC, University of North Carolina, to actually run some pilot programs around what is the process to build ecosystems and how do we measure that. And we have launched a pilot program in collaboration with Forward Cities in Kansas City, and we're about a year into that program of a 3-year program, and hoping we can be able to share more about that at the next ESHIP Summit. Another project that we're working on is in collaboration with a couple folks that are not on this call but have been involved in the ESHIP Summit, which is actually writing a case study about the small town of Ord, Nebraska, or Nebraska is a little tiny town in Nebraska that has been doing what you would call today ecosystem building for about 30 years. And we're working on a case study to look at how it became the only small town in Nebraska with double-digit population growth, and a lot of it driven by entrepreneurs. So those are two projects we're working on related directly to ESHIP goal and initiative 5.2.
Well, thank you, Andy.
And I'm happy to, maybe on a future call, if it makes sense for the group, to present more about, actually I wouldn't present, the people actually doing the work would present, to share what they're learning in those two projects. But those are two projects the foundation is working on.
Well, it sounds like, at least for the crowd that's on this call, though, the Nebraska study seems, you know, I can feel the interest through the Zoom there. So that's wonderful. So, Alistair, I know that you've been working on you and Adam and others have been working on something. Do you have anything to share?
Yes, I'm on the phone, so I cannot type in my interest, but I can send it to you via email. And no, what we're trying to focus on now, not many conversations with Adam about this, so mostly what I've been doing is to come up with a few simple tools, again, to measure what goes on inside an ecosystem rather than just outputs, and then to test those with people such as the people on this call, if whoever's willing to help test those tools, critique them, change them, whatever is needed. So this is what, you know, the customer discovery phase.
Cool.
Excellent.
And for those on this call, I'd be particularly interested in talking sometime with Kim because her expertise in data management and related issues, I think that could be very valuable. I'm not a data management person, so I need to talk with someone who has expertise in that. Just final comment. What we're particularly interested in is kind of small data, not big data. That is looking at the smallest feasible group on which to collect data about testing measurements. My feeling is that if you use large groups, collect data from large groups, because it's consolidated data, it's aggregated data, you lose detail. And when we talk about these complex systems, detail can be very important. Small changes can produce big events. You aggregate data, you tend to lose those factors.
Oh, thank you, Alistair. I think that's that helps us a lot. It certainly, you know, I think it would be inappropriate to plug Alistair's 2019 book on applying complex adaptive systems thinking to ecosystem building.
No, I think that's absolutely appropriate.
Absolutely inappropriate. Okay, so never mind, and don't you can find it on Amazon. We have a number of people who are on or working on various books. So who else has an existing project that they'd like to share? If not, I will call on Chad. Looking at Chad's face on the little camera there.
Cool.
Tell us what you're working on. You're obviously well entrenched in some stuff.
Yeah, thanks. A couple of points on this, and Andy, thanks for sharing about ESHIP communities. Definitely keen to be involved in that where possible. We're also working on a similar kind of framework with MIT with their REAP program, Regional Entrepreneurship Acceleration Program, and also watching closely what Techstars is doing with their product out of Louisville, where we are seeing these ecosystem building frameworks put in place, and then how do you measure? And also that's one of the things I'm working on with the University of Southern Queensland in creating something very specific to regional areas. You know, what does this look like for a town of 2,500, 20,000, 200,000, and how do they differ? So those frameworks. And the second point is on access to detailed metrics, working on a project nationally in Australia tapping into the government data, taxation data, employment data, more real time, and creating a platform which then connects a whole bunch of disparate data sources from trademarks, IP, and things like that, and gets us what they call the entrepreneurial quality index, where you can go down to the street level postcode and say, okay, well, what's the quality of it? And then aligning that with data from the likes of Startup Genome and the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor. So a big data repository coming into the center, just being able to plug in multiple data sources. And it's what that does. It makes it not so much what do we measure, but be able to take any data sources and put it into the machine and then saying, well, so what does that look like? So it's an ongoing experiment. So happy to share more about that as it develops. And in fact, today we're actually meeting with a few different states to try and get them on board, because of course aligning everybody and stuff, we're trying to align multiple approaches to the same thing is one of the other challenges with this.
Well, it seems like the more I follow this, the more data sources are out there. Whether they're useful or not may be an issue with the quality of the data, but it seems to me that there's an awful lot of metrics already being used de facto. And they're kind of picked either for convenience or to be self-serving. But it makes sense. This is something that's been pitched before. Would it make sense to sort of crowdsource what are all the metrics that are being used? I think we've even asked the ecosystem builders what's the metrics they wish they had. Andy, do we have that data from the last ESHIP summit? They asked every registrant some questions.
That data does exist, yes.
And is it accessible?
Yes, I'm sure it is.
Ah, well, do you remember the 3 questions that were asked?
Not off the top of my head, I don't.
No,
I know we have input on that, of course.
But I would love to, maybe that there's a way to use that to jumpstart. If we just had a sense of
just give you an update. Yeah, that data is being analyzed now. So there is
but not by us.
Someone on our research team is actually writing a report based on it. So we'll see. The questions were ultimately around what would you like to measure that you can't measure right now?
Right.
And that was actually a really cool discussion to have on this group when that data does all get analyzed. And I think they actually use a larger sample size than just the summit. I don't know where they got the rest of the data. What I would suggest, actually, I just posted Alistair's Rainforest Scorecard and also his most recent book. And perhaps a proposal would be if Alistair, and I'm open to the group's suggestions here, but perhaps on the next meetup, Alistair might be interested in either presenting the scorecard, Rainforest Scorecard methodology, or even around his new book. That would be very difficult to cover all of the awesome stuff in his new book in like 10 minutes. But perhaps if Alistair would be interested, I would love to actually hear him present it, because I've read the book, but I haven't ever had it presented live, and I have lots of questions because it's such a.
I'll be glad to talk about it. Yeah.
Well, would you
do that?
Would you be willing to do that next month?
Sure.
That's great.
Then
how long?
I have
how long?
How much do you need? Wait, we probably can do 15, 20 minutes.
Hey, Norris, given the time here, why don't we discuss this offline?
Okay.
Alistair, but I would love to have help Alistair prepare something, because I have been itching. I have so many questions for Alistair after reading that book, and such I'm fired up now.
Well,
let's do the meetup tomorrow.
Or later today.
Yeah, just let me know, and send me an email. Let me know, and we can get on the phone and have a chat about it.
That would be great.
So should we appreciate?
I have a project. Can I, if I can share a small project that I'm working on?
Excellent.
Which
You're part of our group.
Well, thank you. It kind of overlaps between Goal 5 and Goal 1, which is inclusive field, and something around connected networks. So 4.6, which is the initiative project, talks about connected networks and a standards board. And I don't believe that there could be a standards board unless we have some standards. So that involves metrics and having some idea of inclusive fields. So there's an assessment tool that maps and measures the cultural values of people. So their relationships with things like ambiguity, time, authority, things like that, and cultural values in how they relate to how your relationship is with people, and looking at how you approach the world. So I'm keen on mapping where ecosystem builders sit in these 10 cultural values. So there is an assessment tool. What I need to find out is the questions that we need to ask or answer using this tool. Like, are there cultural values across ecosystem builders, or something that's measurable, or do having these traits in this way make for better ecosystem builders, or things like that. And so all of you are more data knowledgeable than I am, and so I'm working with a couple of people in Forward Cities, a couple of people from Startup Champions Network Metrics, but I would love to put an invitation out there for anybody who is curious about how inclusivity and collaborating with others forms into ecosystem building, and how we measure that with cultural values, then please let me know, and maybe we can put together a project canvas.
That would be great. Is that in the management world, there have been a couple instruments that have come out to measuring, what are the cultural dimensions of a community. For instance, is there tight or loose control? I mean, as perceived by this, is it, how much distance is there between the most powerful and the least powerful, and so on? And they've been reasonably effective, at least as an illumination. But they're finding is that the one that I liked was people scored very differently across the 5 boroughs of New York City, which is either really inviting or really scary. But I think the cultural content and social context, what are the local norms, is something that's, I think, could be very informative how we move forward. Anyway, thank you though. I didn't know you were working on that. That is definitely cool. So anyone else want to share a project? I have a couple things I can update you on, but I'm
interested.
Jared.
So it seems like there is some people on the call interested in rural entrepreneurship. So if anyone else is interested, I'd be happy to organize a separate meeting. I mean, my interest is everything from just data that can measure rural entrepreneurship, because it's often left out of state level and even county level data sources, developing metrics to measure rural ecosystems and guidelines or best practices. Or if you know people not on this call, I would be happy to organize that.
Hey, Jared, this is Andy, which, by the way, I didn't actually introduce myself. For those who don't know, I'm Andy Stoll. I work at the Kauffman Foundation. I'm the program officer in a program called Ecosystem Development and Measurement. So I help lead our ecosystem programs. Perhaps, and Norris knows this guy, but Don Mackey, who has been on this call before, is the founder of the Center for Rural Entrepreneurship. And Don actually is leading his center has been absorbed into, absorbed's not the right word, combined into a new organization called E2. And E2 actually has a whole ecosystem building process for rural entrepreneurs. The fastest way to find it is to go to the Center for Rural Entrepreneurship. I think they still have their website based at the University of Nebraska. But Norris, perhaps Don would be a really good presenter to talk about his E2 ecosystem building framework for rural entrepreneurs.
Yeah,
or if not Don, perhaps the Network Kansas group is like implemented Don's rural ecosystem building methodology in like 90 communities. So maybe someone from Steve or somebody.
Yeah, Steve,
for maybe a future call as well. I think Peter would be super excited to talk about that.
Yeah, I reached out. I've been reaching out to Don. Haven't heard anything back. They were a wee bit busy, which is good. That he showed up on the early calls, and I hate to say it, he kind of one of the several good people who drifted away because we weren't actually doing anything. So I think he can be lured back, and everybody likes to talk about what they're what they're doing, and I will fire off a message after we hang up. But that's right. So do we have of the new people on the call? Who is here is not? Go ahead.
This is Mary. Can I ask something real quick? So
Sure.
we're seeing a lot of stuff about government data, like Chaz brought it up, what he's wanting, government data for more real-time analysis. Eric, Andy says that you're doing that, and then also they have a new guy there at the foundation. So this is a big deal for me because, you know, as a grant writer and trainer, that's something that it's really hard to find the actual data that's out there right now that we could access. Could be really interested on one of our meetups hearing from Chad and Eric and Hayden or all of them, sort of what government data suppositories they're using to find this entrepreneurial specific data, because it is very hard to find, especially once we get into those rural areas. So I would really like to hear more about that on a future meetup as well.
So to the notes, that's excellent. To the notes, and I mentioned this in the chat, but why don't you add Hayden Murray as a possible presenter? Because he literally just joined the foundation like a week ago.
Give him time to learn his job.
Yeah. You're presenting now.
Well, but that way we can maybe we can train him.
Nice.
Sorry.
So just so everybody can continue the conversation during the month, I'm going to invite everyone who's not yet on the Slack channel to join the Slack channel. I just dropped a link in here to just join the ESHIP Slack channel. There is a specific channel for Goal 5. So after you join the general, then you're welcome to join any of the existing channels that there are. There are some that are specific for initiatives and projects. So if you want to talk about certain projects with people, that would be great. And then Eric earlier on had added the link to the dashboard. So Michael, that's a good question. What's the benefits of the Slack channel? The Slack channel is probably deeper discussions or sharing information and resources. I know the channel around here has been, or around Goal 5 has been really interesting with lots of shared reports and inputs and things like that. Facebook is probably more of the general ecosystem building conversations. The dashboard is your repository of these call meetups, videos if you've missed something, links for information. We're hoping to put those project canvases, once they're created, up on the Slack channel. If you took part, as I know you were at the ESHIP Summit this year, if you were part of a hackathon, there are pictures of the actual canvases, so it gives people an idea of what's going on. So did I miss anyone's question?
I think anybody, we're in our last 3 minutes. So I will link what I'm working on. But first, anything else anybody else wants to add? We've got otherwise maybe we should have some homework for the next call.
Could I just,
Sure.
Alistair, could I just add that the Department of Commerce, the EDA, Economic Development Administration, has a lot of data, and I don't know in detail, and I'm not sure how much is rural, but it might be worth checking out.
Yeah, and the Economic Research Service at the U.S. Department of Agriculture has a crap ton of rural data, and which used to be easily available. That they do have some pretty amazing data to take up. If you're interested in if you haven't checked that out, and they seem eager to get brownie points for people because people use it. Also, EDA budget doubled for fiscal year 2020. That means and the fiscal year just started October 1. So if one of their programs looks intriguing to you, for instance, they fund technical analysis. It's not just their giant projects, but they do have significant money to support people who are doing technical analysis. The National Science Foundation also has some money to investigate some questions like this. There is actually a whole division of NSF, whole program called the Science of Science and Innovation Policy, invented by a committee but they are very interested in, the science and technology of how innovation advances. And their program officer just happens to be from Idaho. So we're making some progress.
Norris, I know that you had a great call with Christine the other day, because Christine and I were just talking about some other national resource providers or other resources. And I'd love to invite any of you that are on the call. I know Reagan's part of the UC system, and Shane's part of the New York University systems, and so there's a lot of people that have connections or have been working with other organizations, and we're always looking for additional resource providers that could help support this work. And Christine, my colleague, is the person that you want to connect them with. If you will respond back to the email that sent you the reminder, one of the things that that might be helpful is to create a bigger list of people. So in the last minute, I think we want to be mindful of everyone's time. And I will put Tom into the place. Thank you so much, Andy. Is there any one quick thing that we need to talk about, Norris, before we sign off?
Well, I wanted to first thank everybody for giving us an hour of their day, even on a Monday. When we started, had a couple of people. I've had like 5 emails from people who think Mondays are impossible. Your evidence it's not impossible. So thank you for being here, and feel free to reach out to Celia, to Christine, to me, to each other. Particularly on the Goal 5 Slack channel, and keep this conversation going. So it's not the next time we talk is next month. And just remember, you're in for a treat with Alistair next month, and poor Hayden, if he survives, maybe the month after, and Don Mackey, if we can reel him in, and because I think if you haven't seen Don Mackey's stuff, it is not only fantastic, he's been doing it for 20 years, being effective, and it's just mind-blowing. And he does like data, so we can lure him back into the fold. Should be terrific. So the people who have never been to an ESHIP, this is like your first a couple of you haven't been to an ESHIP, this is your first time on pretty much on these calls. Do you want to tell us what we could do better, what could we do more of? Kim? Poor Kim.
I'm sorry. The question is, if you've never been.
Yeah. So what did you take? What could we do more? What should we do less of? What could we do better?
At the ESHIP summit?
No, I meant on these calls.
Oh, on these calls? I don't know. I don't really have I don't really have a context because this is my first call, so I don't know how they typically run.
Well, you're welcome. Okay. Well, give that some thought and get back to us, because we're very much about continuous improvement.
Hey, Norris, perhaps as a way to wrap up, could Alistair just give us 1 or 2 sentences to preview what he may talk about at the next call, and then we'll call it there, because I want to be. I got to go to another meeting, Norris. So, Alistair, can you give us 1 or 2 sentences about what your book is about, your recent book, and tease us so we know in a month we can come back and hear the full story?
Understanding that ecosystems are in fact complex adaptive systems, which sounds very frightening but isn't, and we know a lot about those, so research on those kinds of systems can help us develop ecosystems. And also I can say something about measurements and metrics, and how measurements need to come before metrics, and measurements are what should be focused on. Metrics may have a second priority.
And then, Alistair, can you tell us the name of your book in case anyone wants to try to read it before the next meetup?
Okay, well, thank you for that. It's called Admired Disorder, A Guide to Building Innovation Ecosystems. Admired Disorder happens to be a quote from Hamlet, if you want to look it up. And it is available, as they say, at all outlets, Amazon and a bunch of others, in both paperback and Kindle.
And I will hold my breath till next month. Either that, I'll just read the book again.
Just
And it's
buy another
affordable,
copy.
and it is affordably priced, I might add. So,
Deliberate.
well, it's deliberate.
Great.
So,
Thank you so much, everybody.
thanks. See you next month. Actually, see you
See
sooner.
you on the
Hey,
Slack
guys.
channel. See ya.
Mhm.
Okay.
Great job.
Bye.